Very nice to be here today, and it's been quite a revelation for me, actually. It's the fact that there's a sort of joining of suppliers and receivers. So exactly who should grow this product and this treatment and hopefully make us all a lot better, me included. But first of all, I have to just correct Chris on something he said earlier. And I don't want to be too finicky, but he said that I was an actor. I'm not an actor. I'm a genuine builder. I'm not pretending to be a builder. And I actually went to work with my dad from the age of 4 because I was one of 6 kids and we were all young and must have drove my mother mad. So he took me to work with him. He was a manufacturer of building blocks, what we call breeze blocks, early recyclers, if you like. When you burn coal, you get ashes left over. You mix those with cement and water and vibrate them into a mould, and you've got building blocks. So we didn't know it, but we were the early green people, we were. But that's probably why I've got such a passion for building, is the fact that I've been doing it for so long. There's no blood in my veins anymore, just cement. But a lot of people often ask me, how did you make that transition into TV? Which is a bit disappointing because I obviously don't think it was my wit and good looks, or they wouldn't ask the question. But I was working for a big BBC producer who lived in Hampstead, overlooking the swimming ponds at the back. And I started off doing just some small structural stuff, and I ended up refurbing the whole house, including some of the garden. So she said to me, would you like to have a look at this film this production that we're making, give me your opinion? And it was called Over the Garden Wall. And it was Alan Titchmarsh sitting on an umpire's chair while 2 next door neighbours had a one-day makeover on their garden. Well, it was much more interesting watching that paint dry that was on the wall, actually. I've got to say that. It just didn't work at all. So she said to me, Carol, well, what would you do if it were up to you? I said, well, very simple. I wouldn't try to do 2 gardens at once. I would just get someone away for a couple of days, do the garden up, and when they come back, surprise, surprise. She said, would you like to be on it? I said, no. I'm far too shy to want to be able to go on something like that. So I refused it 3 times. And I went home one night and I'd already told my kids and my wife that Carol, that's the name of the lady, had asked me to be in this new TV series. So this night I came the following night, and my daughter Charlotte, who was 8 years of age, my eldest daughter, and she said to me, I was drinking a cup of tea, I'll never forget, leaning up against the cooker in the kitchen, drinking a cup of tea, and she was there playing, and she had this conversation with Dad. She said, Dad, she said, you'll have to go on the telly. I said, go on the telly? I said, why is that then? So she said, because I've had a bet with the boy at school who doesn't believe me. Now, we're not a gambling family. I don't gamble at all, you know. No. I said, you've had a bet with the boy at school? I said, how much you had a bet for? She went, £10. Well, I spat my tea out. I said, a tenner? I said, how are you going to possibly pay that back? She said, Daddy, I don't intend to lose. And it's the gospel truth. So I went to work, I told my wife, and she was laughing, and we were laughing so much. I went to work the next day, and I said to Carol, the producer, I told her what had happened, and she started laughing as well. And I said, because of that, I'll have a go at it. She said, well, it's not quite as simple as that. She said, you've got to have a screen test. And I thought, oh, I've seen what some of these screen tests are like. But I said, okay, I'll do a screen test. And that's where I met Charlie Dimmock. With his big head of hair, big feet. And we hit it off there and then. And Alan joined us much later when we started filming. On the first day of filming, he turned up, and that's when we met him. But they sent off the screen test to the BBC. They said sign them up, and the rest is history, effectively. Yeah, and it's been, one hell of a journey. But I've been doing television now for very, very close to 28 years. Don't ask me where that's gone. It's gone so quick. But the downer about it is that if they show some old programs of yours, you go, oh my goodness, I look about 12. That's just reminding me how bad I look now in the mirror. But I've had a very enjoyable time, and really such variety, given the opportunity to go travel the world, meet wonderful people, make some severe cock-ups. I'll tell you about a couple of those. But generally, it's just been a great opportunity for me, and I've travelled the world, and there's certain charities I've been able to endorse: breast cancer, the men's cancer, prostate cancer. Been patron of them for 25 years. British Heart Foundation, quite a load of things. But I've never been involved in a charity as intimate as this one, which is really good, the relationship between everyone who's here, between the interaction between each other. I think it may be because everybody has had to endure the problems of neck and head cancer in one way or another, me included actually, which leads me to tell you how it came about with me. I got a very bad chest infection, and this chest infection was severe, and they gave me some antibiotics, some special ones that reacted badly, and I had to stop them instantly or they would have killed me. That's how bad they were. But this chest infection changed into pneumonia and attacked my heart. And I remember waking up at the bottom of the stairs. Obviously the way I got there was tumble down it, but I don't remember it. And I was working on my daughter's house across the road from me, rebuilding her house. And I was doing a lot of work there on my own, which I realise now, I didn't at the time, but now I'm getting a bit older, I'm getting a bit wiser, that it's not a good idea to actually be doing in the construction industry when not on your own, because there is a risk that something could happen. Anyway, I was under the doctor, and they said, well, you've got atrial fibrillation as a result of the heart issues with the pneumonia, and also you may well have had a heart attack, which made you fall down the stairs. So things were looking a bit down, and then he just tested my neck. This is my GP. And he went, He said, there's a lump there. I said, where? He said, there. I said, oh, yeah, it's on the inside. He said, yes. He said, it's probably nothing. He said, but we'll just go and check it out and get a biopsy done on it. So I went to the hospital, did the biopsy, came back, and they said it's cancer. I'll never forget that. My wife was with me, and we told it, and he said it to us in such a matter-of-fact way, this particular chappie who was doing it, that it was something I've never forgotten. It was just, I think he needed probably a topping up on the bedside manner. That's what I think he needed. But it was a shock, a big shock. And then I was told by the doctor that they knew what. I was transferred to Barts and the London hospital. They did an operation on me straight away. Now, the reason for this was very lucky because of COVID. I went there, and because I had to do all these tests for the anaesthetist, it would have been very difficult for me to actually be fitted in before COVID would have stopped me. But luckily, the anaesthetist spotted this watch on my wrist. And he said, let me take that for a minute. He took it and he went into it, and this gave him all the information that he wanted about my heartbeat and whether I was suitable for an operation to go under the anaesthetic. And he got enough information from there to sign the order for me to come in and have the operation. Otherwise, I might not have had the operation for a year, who knows? Not when COVID first came in, because it was a complete shutdown. So I was very lucky that I had the operation just probably a week or two before actual COVID set in and the game changed completely. And they decided the best thing to do was to cut me from there all the way round down here and up there like that and remove it, cut it out. And then they was going to give me radiotherapy. But when they cut it out, the kids came up to see me with my wife. They all came up with a new pet name for me, Zippy. It might seem a bit harsh, but that's just a reflection of our sense of humour, because when it's dark, you have to be funny. And so they still occasionally call me Zippy just to put a smile on their faces, you know. But the operation was a success. They were very pleased with it. And I was allowed to after the operation, believe it or not, I think because I was fairly fit, that was what it was. But I was in pretty good shape. I was a bit heavy, but I was in pretty good shape. It wasn't too much fat. There was a lot of muscle there. It was just a little bit dormant. But it was, it all went off well. But then I had to leave it for a while before you had the radiotherapy. And I wasn't too sure about having it because they said this about this dry mouth thing. And I thought, well, I could drink more lager. And that might help. But it doesn't, because it dehydrates you, makes you worse. But I thought about it anyway, what we were going to do. And I said, all right, well, what would you do if it were you? He said, I would have the radiotherapy, just to be sure. So I said, well, okay, if you know much more about it than I do, so obviously I'll listen to your advice, which is what I did. 4.5 stone later, in a matter of about, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and they had to drill a hole in here and put a pipe in and feed me through a pipe. And I lost 4.5 stone. Luckily, I've gained 1.5 stone back now, so I'm back to my marriage weight. This was how much I weighed when I got married. So I say to my wife, just to wind her up, are you the same weight as when you got married? Now, I won't say what she said, but she said, remember, who's going to cook for you, who's going to wash for you? But I had to have some time off work. Although I was busy at work filming, I had to have some time off. I mean, I've had no breaks in filming for the 27 years I've been in the business, except for this particular period. And I didn't work for about 8 months. This is the miracle part, I didn't drink any alcohol for nearly a year. Just couldn't face it. So it'd have to be something really good that if a pint of beer couldn't encourage me to go and have it, the food would have to be good. But the food, I don't know what it was with this. The first 2 weeks of the radiotherapy was okay, but then it started to happen, and it was like an unconscious act. I didn't really want to stop eating or anything. It's just I couldn't eat, and I couldn't work out why. And we had the dietitians, all the girls from Bart's and the London were terrific. I can't say anything but praise for the way they performed and pulled me back from the edge, because I wasn't sleeping, I was losing so much weight, I was feeling very down, which is unusual for me. So I suppose that's why it hit me even more. I think it was just being so rough and so sick. But as my wife said, and the kids, you've got to be positive, Dad. You know, don't succumb to it. You've got to fight it. Which is, they sort of must have made me, because I forced myself to sleep, which is a bit hard, but it worked eventually. Forced myself to eat. And then my wife came up with this smoothie, which is calorific, she calls it. And she puts all stuff in it, shots and that, not alcohol shots. That'd be an improvement, I might suggest that actually. But all these shots which have got a calorie loaded, and mix that in with, she puts double cream in it. Just, don't matter if it's got loads of calories, just to get a bit of weight, put a bit of meat behind it so I can get a bit of weight on me. Because she's found out through this that I burn about 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day. And that's because of the size of me, apparently. And the problem arose after the radiotherapy. It must have changed the dynamics inside me somehow, that now I burn. So I've got a Rhodesian Ridgeback who's about that big, and he has to be walked twice a day. So I walk him, and he has to have a good walk. So that keeps me fit, keeps me trim, but it's not something I can explain. So I don't know, if I can't explain it and they can't explain it to me, how can we actually fix it? We can't. But anyway, we persevered with it and tried lots of different types of food and diet. One of the strange things about it, I don't know whether this has happened to anyone here, that before I got this disease, the food and taste I had, what I liked, after I've had this disease and been repaired, the things I used to like, I don't like. The things I never used to like, I do like. I used to have a sweet tooth, now I've got a savoury tooth. Has that happened to anybody else here? Yeah? It's a very strange thing to do because, you know, when you're quite methodical, you're used to doing things a certain way. I'm a bit OCD like that, you know, do it in the same pattern, get up the same way, bath the same way, shower the same way, you know. And it's just strange for that to happen to someone who's that organised, and all of a sudden, and when you go out to a restaurant, apart from trying to avoid choking, because they've told me now that I've got this bit of bone growth, extra bone growth in my throat that's happened since I've had the treatment and the operation. So this bone growth, they reckon, might be stopping. I'm going to have to talk to you about this, actually. That this, take the opportunity. Don't look a horse in the mouth, that's for sure. Yeah, so it's affecting, they said, me swallowing my food. Have you known about that before? Extra bone growth? No. Another conundrum, that's what I've done. I've brought up another conundrum.
Modern miracle. I'd be surprised. But there might be. You've had a scan?
Well, they were going to operate, and that's what I had a scan for recently, but I had a chest infection again, so we've gone round the whole malarkey again. We're back to...
Scar tissue, loads of scar. Everyone, I'm afraid, there's a lot of scar tissue. Bones. We'd ruin bones all the time, and we'd do that.
Well, this is what they said from looking at the CAT scan or the X-rays, and they've seen it, and they've said that's definite there. Anyway, it's something we'll sort out one way or t'other. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Now, let me tell you a couple of things that's happened to me. We did the ground force was so successful worldwide that in America they wanted us to send some copies out so they could show it in America, and the BBC said no, the Americans won't get the humour, they won't get the accents, and they're not really interested in gardens. I couldn't work this out because I've got family in Cleveland, Ohio, and they came over and they took back with them a compilation of videos, VHSs that we'd taped of the ground force show. There was about 30 shows. Anyway, so what they did, they put it on American VHS because it's not the same as the English one. And they had a big house, a big garden, and they used to have ground force nights. And people would come, and they'd have about 200 people per night when they showed the film nights, ground force nights. That's what it was called. And they all loved it to death. So that was great. So I said it would work. So in the end, the BBC allowed some of it to go to America on BBC America. And they showed it out there, and it did really well. Now what you've got to remember, though, is that BBC America is on the expensive cable network of $200 a month. And that's the one we was on. If we'd have been on the cheapest one, it would have been $50 a month. But we had, at our peak, we had 38 million viewers on the expensive cable network. And they reckon if we'd have gone on to the cheaper one, we'd have had 270 million viewers. That would have made a bit of a change to the balance, but we was on the dear one, and it did very well in America. So well that they asked us actually to go out there and actually make series for the American market that we could then sell back to the BBC and use it on the British market. For some reason, Alan Titchmarsh, he didn't want to go to America. He did the one journey after we did that first one in America after 9/11. We did one there, special, a very emotional one. But that's the only one that Alan would do. He wouldn't do it. He left, and then he left the show. I think maybe the stage got too crowded, you know. Can't be sure, but maybe that was it. But then, of course, we had to go out to America to make these series. And we'd do them in chunks of 4 or 6 and get them that way and work really hard and fast so that we wouldn't... I mean, I was the only one of the crew and that with a family, so I wanted to make sure that I saw them. Anyway, it did really well in America. And we was filming in Washington, right? I'll never forget this. And we got an invite to go and meet the president at the White House. And I thought, this is amazing. No, this was George W. Bush, young George. Anyway, when we turned up there, the security was unbelievable. You couldn't get in with dandruff in there, let alone anything else. But we turned up, and he was such a charming man. He was lovely. And all the British consul people and the embassy people loved him to death because he was such a nice man. And I can verify that because he was so nice. So anyway, we did a lot of filming around and messing about. And we went out the back of the White House. It's huge. There's all these big, massive staircases and everything, all the external ones. And all this area, a big area for organised visits and all that people do. So he said, what we'll do, we're gonna film the president taking off in a helicopter. Because this was the time when he had to go to Kuwait. You know, there was problems, obviously, when he was at war. So he had to go to Kuwait, and he was flying from the White House lawn to Kuwait. That's the way he was going. So they said, what happens, though, when he takes off, when he flies, there's 3 helicopters, so they don't know which one he's in case they want to shoot it down, a terrorist. I said, excuse me, am I stupid, but why not shoot the 3? I think that's a sensible, fair comment, don't you think? They thought it was a fantastic strategy, and I'm going... Yes, so what they decided, our director, John Thornycroft, who was our director in all ground force here and in America, so we flew that, he decided to put us, there was me, Charlie Dimmock, Willie and Kirsty, the other 2 members of the team, some of you might remember them, and put us in with the press corps. So we were on that side, and then the crew went over to where the public were and shot that way so that they could see us waving. So he's going, wave to the president. So the president's walking up the stairs on the helicopter to get on. and we're all waving. We're a long way away. We're about 200 or 300 yards away, and we're waving. And as he's gone up, I could see the concern in his face. Who's waving at me from the press corps? That's never happened before. And as he's walked up the stairs, he's gone crack. He's hit his head over the door, lifted his legs up, and he's cleaned him out, and he's laying flat on the top of the staircase. And we went, oh, sugar, or something like that. And they said, luckily he wasn't hurt, and he wasn't upset about it. He was a bit humiliated, but he laughed about it. Can you imagine that, though? The first little foray out into the White House, and you nearly wipe out the president. So much for the free helicopters. But life's full of surprises. And my last memory of it was, do you remember whenever they used to make a public announcement, there was always that lectern? Yeah, that same place. And I thought that was a massive big room. Tiny. It was about as big as, not even as big as this central part here that we're on here. It just seems to look bigger. That's the way. And that's where, so they got me talking on there about what not to do when going upstairs. Be aware of low heights, ceilings. So we did that piece, and that was in the American version of the film. Yes. So, again, moving on, and we can move on to Nelson Mandela. When we were told that we were going to do the man of the millennium, which he was at the time, in the year 2000. And when we had a fixer in the BBC who could get us an opportunity to maybe surprise Nelson Mandela. Well, that was it. When he was first mooted, there was nobody else was going to make it for me. That was it. Because if we didn't get that one, we could have had Clinton, Hillary and Bill Clinton's new house in New York to landscape that. But ironically, that's where Nelson Mandela stayed while we did his garden in South Africa. And he loved it. It was nice, and he was a wonderful man. He mentioned the BBC about 30 times in the first opening 50 seconds, you know. So then afterwards, when it was all over, he pulled me to one side, Nelson Mandela. So I had my opportunity to, have a conversation with this man and say something substantial about his life, because I'd read his book, Long Walk to Freedom, and I'd always followed him right the way through the 80s and 90s and that, and he always was an interesting man. And I have to explain to you this, you have to get to know this. He had this ability, when he spoke, it was mesmerising. I know that's a common term used, but this is genuine. I've only ever met 2 people like that in my life. And when he speaks, it all goes quiet because everyone wants to listen to him. So, but it was just me and him. That was when there was a few people. When me and him were talking, I was fascinated talking. And he said, I promise you, Tommy, he said that as long as I'm alive and I'm here, because I travel a lot around the world, I will keep this garden as beautiful as you've made it for me. Because that's the thing that kept him alive when he was locked up in Robben Island, was the fact he had a small bit of garden that they let him grow stuff in. And that's what kept his mental stability. So he said, I promise you that I will keep it as beautiful as you've left it to me. It's my opportunity. What did I say? What did I say? I said, you'd better, because I may be back. I didn't realise till after that he'd never seen the show. He thought he was being roughened up by some sort of garden mafia. So there was my opportunity to make history for me. And I suppose I did in one way. Not necessarily the right way, But yeah, so that's two presidents I've caused the problem to. And I met quite a few, President of Ethiopia. I met quite a few presidents. Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's very strange, the journey that you take in life and the path that you go down, and you come to a fork. Do you take it, yes or no? And then all of a sudden, it turns out to be a rich tapestry of loads of different things that have happened to you and memories. And these are not even really the really funny ones. I could tell you some more, but I don't know whether it might be a bit too close to the edge, some of them. But I have to say in general, I mean, I haven't just been doing Ground Force and other shows. I've been working solidly for all that time. And although Chris did say that I was an actor, and I say, no, I wasn't an actor. But I did actually make a movie. I played a hitman. Did you think I'm too soft for a hitman? I played a hitman, but I did say to him when we were discussing it, I said that I wouldn't do violence. He said, "This is a hitman." I said, "I know that, but too many kids watch our programs, Ground Force and that." I said, "I can't be showing them that I'm going to be starting cutting people, shooting them and all that." So I said, "We either do it as a Billy Liar role, or we do it with menace rather than violence." So they went for the menace. And the film was called One, O-N-E, and you can get it. It went on, was released to festivals around the world, like them big film festivals. So I didn't do a tour with them, but they went round the world and it was well received. and it got a nice write-up, I did, because I was the only amateur in a group of professionals. It's nice of them to say that. A backhanded compliment like that. But yes, so I made a movie, and I made it after I'd finished filming Ground Force in the day, up in Birmingham, and drove off, and we finished filming it about 3 o'clock in the morning. That was the second day. We did another day 3 months earlier, the only other day I had off. But yeah, if you get a chance, it might be worth a little watch. It was a sort of a road movie, a bit American in style, but it was shot in Wales. There you go. Yeah, so I did that. So another thing, and then the opportunity. I've written 6 books, and got second in Best Book of the Year award. Jamie Oliver he beat me, and he didn't even write his one. Someone wrote it for him. But I've also had a production company where I've produced some very successful series. So I've been both sides of the camera. But sometimes if I go that side of the camera, I always end up having to do both sides of the camera. Funny enough, that is. Saving on money, that's all it is. So as I say, it's been a rich tapestry so far, and at the moment I'm filming Homes Under the Hammer on a daily basis, and also a new series of Clean It and Fix It, which is, there's a new series in the can, the 3rd series now ready to go out. So I don't know when they'll be putting it out, probably before Christmas sometime. But they've also got some stuff lined up for me for next year. So if I was thinking about retiring, I can think again. Because the alternative is I haven't been working for the last, filming for the last 3 weeks. It's very unusual that, but I haven't done it. But I've had so much work to do at home. She's made a list, my wife Marie, of all the things that need doing. And there are a few. I did rebuild the house completely, knocked it down and rebuilt it. And it's a marriage of old and new, because it's built in 1860. And I built it now, so it's got all the features are all been renewed, everything's new. I took it down, rebuilt it with the same bricks. But I did it in Flemish bond with blocks on the inside, so it's thermally efficient. So that was the way to do it. They wanted to film it, I wouldn't let them, not in my own house. Although when we did the COVID came in, they were desperate, the BBC, for some daytime TV, stuff being done. So they phoned me up and said, is there any chance we can do some filming in your garden? I said, yeah. There's some things I had decking that I was beginning to go home a bit and rip it out, and we'd put paving down and change it all around. I fell off the step ladder. Broke 2 vertebrae in the back, couple of ribs, and I got a scar on here, which is about that long, right to the bone. And I only fell off 3 steps like that. You know what it was? Gardening. I had a flower basket, filled it up, and I'd soaked it with water so that it would go straight. Lifted it up. When I'm up the ladder, as I've reached out, it's kicked the ladder out from underneath me, and it's an aluminium ladder, and sliced my leg in nearly in half. Another visit down to London to the A&E. Yeah, there was a team of about 20 people waiting for me because I was so injured. Yeah, but I've done quite a colourful tapestry. A lot of people are saying to me, why don't you do your autobiography? I said, that should be written by somebody else because I'm not over yet. I think you should do it all in one compilation. You can't have different volumes of it, and do it as a rave from the grave. That can't be done. So, yeah, the future's looking still a bit rosy. All I've got to do is make sure that I get this back. Now, it will be 5 years in January. Unfortunately, there is a little postscript to this. I was due to be joining you all tonight and speaking at dinner. I would have told you a few more stories tonight. But unfortunately, I can't because I've got an urgent emergency appointment at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning back in London. Chest infection again. Had to go to the doctor. They sent me up the hospital for a CT scan. And they think there's a 3-centimetre tumour in the lung. So I've been trying to keep cheerful, and you've cheered me today anyway. Thank you very much for letting me reminisce and talk. And hopefully, I had to weigh up whether I was going to tell you about this or not, but I felt a little bit unfair if I was to leave here and I didn't tell you. That's why I'm going to have to go after this talk, and I won't be able to join you for a few beers tonight. But I would hope and be really pleased if you would have a few on my behalf. And on that note, just keep my fingers crossed, and if you wouldn't mind keeping yours crossed for me, hopefully I'll see you again in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.